So, a little bit about me. I am a solicitor. I've been a solicitor for 33 years now. I'm also a mediator. I have a practice in Birmingham called Legal Swan Solicitors. But I suppose if you want to ask me what my claim to fame might be, I am a former president of the Law Society of England and Wales. I was the president in 2022 to 2023, and I was fortunate enough to be the first Asian president, the first Muslim president, and only the seventh female president in the history of the Law Society, which is now over 200 years old. At that time, it was just coming up to 200 years old. So that's kind of my background. In terms of the areas of law that I was practicing in, I started off as a litigator, civil litigator. But over the course of my career, which has spanned, as I said, 33 years, I have done family law, I have done conveyancing, I've done some probate work. But actually, sort of midway through my career, I pivoted into a completely new area, which was professional regulation. And now most of my work is chairing hearings for professional regulators dealing with misconduct cases, competence cases against professionals for various different regulators. So that's the area of work that I do now. An object or story that tells you about my journey. Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story before I tell you what the object is, because I think it will make a little bit more sense when you hear a little bit of my story before I tell you what the object is. So, when I was at school 1,000 years ago, because I'm very, very old now, I'm afraid, um, we my teachers never talked to me about a career in law. It wasn't something anybody ever talked about. I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't know anybody connected to the law. I didn't really watch any legal programs on TV. And law was always something that was just not even on the horizon for me. It was so out of reach, so unachievable that I didn't even give it a thought at school. It just wasn't on my agenda at all. And the other thing, just to give this some context, when I was growing up, I was born and bred in Bradford, and I'm from a working class family. So growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. You know, we were, yeah, I'll give you an example. Our treat each week would be a bar of chocolate. My mum would get us a bar of chocolate on a Friday, and that would be our treat for the week. Because, we just didn't really have a lot of luxuries. We couldn't really afford a lot of luxuries. And actually, when I was 13 years old, I started my very first job, which was a Saturday job, working on the market. I used to get £5 for working a Saturday, and I saved that money because I knew that, if I wanted to buy, well, actually, if I wanted to buy things, I wanted to buy them myself. I didn't want to put a burden on my parents or to demand things or ask things of them. I was brought up with that ethic that you need to work hard, and earn for yourself, and you can spend it on what you want. If you earn it, you can spend it on what you want. So let me start with that as the sort of the backdrop. So, an object I carry. I'm going to fast forward. So I've talked about when I was a young girl at school, 13 years old, and then I'm going to fast forward to 30 odd years later. And by this time, I have joined the legal profession. I've been a partner in a practice. I've now got my own practice, and I've become president of the Law Society. So what I did when I became president of the Law Society, there was a handbag that I'd had my eyes on for a long, long, long time. And this handbag cost quite a bit more than I would normally spend on a handbag. And for many, many years since I'd had my eye on this handbag, I'd always said to myself, you cannot justify spending that kind of money on a handbag. It's just not right. And this was always in the back of my mind because I'd been brought up to understand the value of money and to understand that, not everybody has it. And if you do have it, you need to spend it wisely and carefully. And you've got to think about what else you could do with that money that might be able to give benefit to other people. That's always been really important to me. So anyway, when I became president of the Law Society, I decided that that was the time that I would treat myself, and I gifted myself that handbag that I'd had my eye on, and I bought it for myself. And the reason why I did that was because it was my way of rewarding myself for an achievement that would have been incomprehensible to me at 13 years old, or even through much of my career, actually, most of my career, I would have said, I would have never dreamt that I could achieve becoming president of the Law Society of England and Wales. So basically, when I carry that handbag, you're coming back to what's the object that you carry, which means a great deal to you, or has a story behind it. When I carry that handbag, it reminds me that I can achieve what other people didn't believe I could do. Um, it gives me a confidence that I didn't have previously, and it's almost like an armor to me. It tells me that I can be that person, and it tells me that actually you deserve to be where you are, you should be where you are, and why shouldn't you reward yourself by spending a little bit of your own money on something to remind you that you have achieved? So that's my little object that I carry. And that's my story as to why I carry it, what it means to me. And it isn't just about walking around with a handbag that would, you would that costs quite a bit of, well, I say quite a bit more than I would normally spend. I mean, there are far more expensive handbags out there. I didn't go for one of those, but I went for something that I'd wanted for quite a long time, and that was my reward to myself. It's quite difficult for me to think of a moment that has shaped my career because there have been so many over the years, and I'm sure many people are in a similar position. I can think back to so many people who have encouraged me along the way. They've put me forward for positions that I didn't even know were going at the time. And they have elevated my career and helped my career along the way. Many, many people have done that. And if I was to name all of them, I'd be here for hours, quite honestly. So those are all pivotal moments, because as you're going through your career, you're kind of thinking about what's the next step, what's the next step, what's the next step. And there are always people that will help you to get to that next step and get to that next step and get to that next step. So many, 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 many instances like that. I think coming back to, I guess it's got to come back to becoming president of the Law Society of England and Wales, because that was a very pivotal moment for me in my career. And it did lead to a change, a massive change for me. I think the point where things changed in terms of how I got there was probably when I set up my own practice, and that was back in 2007. And at that time, because I set up a practice as a sole practitioner, I was looking for support from other sole practitioners and other people who might be in a similar position. And I joined a group that was specifically there to support sole practitioners. And I became the chair of that group back in 2012, 2013. And after I finished my year as chair of that group, I then became the representative for sole practitioners on the Law Society Council. And that is where I really kind of got into a space, and I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but I got into a space where opportunities within the Law Society opened up to me. And ultimately, that's what led to me being elected as the president of the Law Society of England and Wales. So I think that probably was a really pivotal moment. It was a decision that I made for one reason, and that reason was because I was looking for support. I was looking for others who were in a similar position to me so that I could get advice from them, talk to them, and they would understand the issues that I was going through, the pressures that were on me as a sole practitioner. But actually, although that was the reason I joined the group, it kind of pivoted in various different ways, and I ended up representing sole practitioners, and eventually that led to me representing 200,000 solicitors across England and Wales, and 10,000 of those, over 10,000 of those were international at the Law Society. So I think that was probably quite a pivotal moment for me. It's really hard when you get asked about what's your legacy to kind of answer that question as to, because actually other people will, they're the ones that decide what your legacy is. You don't decide what your legacy is really. I mean, when people talk about me, I think they do refer to me as being the first Asian, the first Muslim, seventh female president of the Law Society of England and Wales. But I think and I'm really, really proud to have that, to have been able to have had that role. I'm really proud of that, and I'm delighted I was able to represent the profession in the way that I did. I think when I think about what my legacy and what people will think about me, I would like to think that they will see me as a person who has acted with integrity, somebody who has acted in the best interests of everyone that I have served throughout my career. So that would include clients, um, which when I was when clients that I've acted for as a solicitor. I hope it includes my roles as chair of various hearings when I'm acting for regulators. I'm acting in the public interest. I'm acting to protect the public, to make sure that they are properly protected. But I also hope that they will remember me as a president, a really good president who acted in the best interests of 200,000 solicitors, whatever their background, whatever their area of law, wherever they were based, um, whether it was in the UK, whether it was abroad, and that I did a really good job when I was doing that role. And I really hope that's what I am remembered for. There are other things that I've done along the way. One of my key kind of highlights of my year was uh, I was instrumental in making sure that the Indian legal services market opened up to solicitors in England and Wales. And I know that that was a matter of huge importance to many, many solicitors, not only in the large city firms, but also on the high street. It was really important to them. So I hope that's something that will be part of my legacy. And I hope that, others will see and consider law as a profession that they will now go into when they might not otherwise have done so. And I hope those who are already in the profession will look and think, you know what? I can progress, I can get promoted, I can move up the levels, I can get into a senior position within the legal profession. And I hope that that will be something that we see translating into better statistics going forward into the future.